complete the exhibition tour, but that's after this next session. And we had a very incisive discussion on reducing carbon emissions earlier. This time, we're going to be talking about alternative to high carbon fossil fuels. And that's talking about carbon neutral fuels. To moderate the session is Mr. Uchenna Ibi. Please a round of applause for him as he comes forward. But there's a very brief session, after which we'll have the exhibition tour. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good day, everyone, and thank you very much for having me. Like most other people said, I'm not a politician, but at least I know what protocol is. So please permit me to stand on already established protocol. This session, like she said, is on carbon neutral fuel, and that is hydrogen. We've had a whole lot of presentations since yesterday, everybody talking about energy transition and the pathway for Africa. But again, like the minister just said a while ago, the reality is energy transition is happening and Africa cannot afford to be left behind. So this particular session is on green hydrogen, whether green or blue one. Hydrogen is one of the clean fuels that is widely seen as alternative or to fossil fuel. So this is a very, very important session. So to discuss this session with myself this morning is a very, very well assembled panel. And I have with me, I'd like to invite one of the panel members, and that's Lamin Camara. Lamin is the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Petroleum and Energy, Republic of the Gambia. Please a round of applause. The potential to be leaders. So, but the thing is, to get into that future and to lead in that future, it doesn't come without challenges. And those challenges is what we are going to discuss in this particular panel, across the technology itself, the finances, and the policies. So please, let's get started. And to get started, everything we've said here, and again, like I said, there's this much talking around the world, the euphoria, the excitement, everybody talking about hydrogen, and even some countries saying hydrogen is going to be the new LNG. So there's that excitement around the world about hydrogen. And again, even if you come down to Africa, you'll see that a lot of countries are already starting to align themselves to really grab a share of that hydrogen market that is to come. If you look at Namibia, you see what is happening in Namibia. If you look at Egypt, you see what is happening in Egypt. They are starting to really increase activities and ramping up progressing investment in hydrogen. So down here in Nigeria, we are a major stakeholder in the global energy sector currently. Nigeria, Africa, we are huge stakeholders. And like I said earlier, we also have the potential, what everything it will take to remain relevant, even in that future we're talking about. So my question to you will be, where do you see Africa in a future where hydrogen is a significant part of the energy mix? Where do you see us? Do you see us still being that major stakeholder on the table of global energy system?
Thank you. In my mind, I see hydrogen will be the future for Africa because, like everybody knows, there is a lot of natural resources, and there are a lot of problems for the storage and to agriculture. So hydrogen is, in my mind, is the best way. If you have a couple of seconds, I will present you briefly what are doing our organization. and association for better understanding of the subject. Thank you. So, I'm here for represent the African Hydrogen Partnership, the only no-African association that exclusively dedicates to the development of green and natural hydrogen. Hydrogen as chemical products, fuel cells, and related commercial opportunity in Africa. I would also like to thank Dr. Innocent, Chairman of African Hydrogen Partnership, and CD for the trust. Concerning our company, Ivoire Hydrogen. Ivoire Hydrogen is a company hailing from the Ivory Coast whose goal is to democratize the use of hydrogen, be it for mobility, purpose, construction, energy, and industries on the African continent. To that effect, we have launched the EH2 CAP 2023 project since September 2021, which aims to have the first hydrogen demonstrators in the Ivory Coast for the 2023 African Cup of National Football Cup. This project is divided into 3 axes. First one is setting up training resources for the creation, sharing, and understanding of hydrogen in university and the local community. This is the first point. People must understanding what is hydrogen. Before set up a new technology, people must know what is it. The second step is to create a virtual event dedicated to hydrogen in West Africa in September 2021. Nigeria is a very big guest. You're welcome. And the last one is to demonstrator, set up of an hydrogen demonstrator during the African Cup of Nations in conjunction with an event dedicated to ENR and H2. It's programmed for July and 23. So I hope with this explanation we can understand how we can promote these new vectors. It's not a new vector because it's everywhere. It's naturality vectors, and there is a lot of opportunity for African economy to develop local industry and businesses. So thank you for this question. And
yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yeah, that's. I said earlier, Africa. We are a very big stakeholder in the energy space globally. When you talk about supply, there are so many presenters, they've talked about the huge gas potential or reserve that we have, the huge oil and gas oil reserve that we have, and all those. And again, but what I keep saying, and that's what the Secretary said here as well, whether in fossil fuel energy world or in clean energy world, Africa still has that potential to be leading. And when it comes to green hydrogen, hydrogen, like I said, whether blue hydrogen that can synergize with our gas reserve, gas availability, or green hydrogen that can come from our natural resources like wind or solar. So we have that potential to continue to lead in hydrogen production and supply globally. So how do you see it? Where do you see Africa? How do you see us? Or what do you think we need to do government-wise or to really grab that opportunity, even in the future, to still be relevant, still be on that table of energy conversation in the future?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I'll just start on existing protocols. Greetings to all from the Republic of the Gambia. Yes, I think Africa has been playing a central role in energy development and also play a central role in the transition because of the natural resources we have when it comes to renewable energy solutions. Sun we have the wind, and recently there are a lot of discoveries of availability of hydrogen on the continent. And as we speak, in the Gambia also we've already started the process of prospecting hydrogen. blue hydrogen, we say it's existing because if you look at in the MSDBC area, there is huge discovery of gas. Not to talk about what is existing in Nigeria and Ghana already, Ivory Coast. So I think it's an opportunity for us to make use of gas as a form of supporting our energy transition. And yes, Africa can play a very central role in doing so. And use our vast energy, solar energy resources also to propel us in that central role in the global stage. So my answer to that is that yes, Africa has a big role to play in that, but we have to do that in a coordinated and consolidated way as a regional bloc. We have to put our hands together, work in a more collaborative way, to synergize in achieving our goal global stage. I think the memorandum just mentioned that we need all energy solutions on the table. I think we as policymakers, this is the same position we have. Yes, we also want to combat climate change, and we will do so. But I think it has to be in a progressive manner, and as indicated earlier, it has to also be in a just way. We don't have to be in a way where we tie our hands and we cannot achieve our objectives at the end. And that will come to the issue of financing, maybe that these are some of the constraints. But at the level of policy, we have the enabling environment created to really make all these energy resources useful, better for Africa and the global state of that.
Yeah, thank you very much. This side of it, you mentioned policy, and so if you permit me, let's just have a question on that as well. So you talked about policy. Now, this is a new kind of industry, if you like, a new technology. It's not yet very commercialized. Investment are not yet or cannot yet be self-sustaining. So to really go into that, to do investment in hydrogen now, whether green hydrogen or blue hydrogen, we need a lot of efforts to de-risk that investment for investors. And those efforts will normally come as in form of a policy framework or incentives from the government. And you mentioned it already that something is already being done. Please, can you just just throw a bit more light on that? What is already being done, or what government is actually thinking that could be done to help de-risk investment or attract investment into this space?
Okay, when it comes to policy, just give you maybe when we try to produce renewable energy into our energy mix, we make sure we have incentives, the tax incentives to participate in the country, provide clean energy sources. And what we did with the renewable energy is that we created like a 15-year tax credit for institutions that want to invest in various clean energy sources. And we see also how we work together in attracting climate support, climate funds to support activities. These are key policy objectives to provide investor confidence in the project. I think this has to be emulated across the continent. And we also lower the entry barriers for confidence, because as you said, this is not a marginal area. It is projected that we need 11 trillion of investment if we want to reach where we want to reach by 2050. And that is not a small money. And we know to get that from the global financial world, I mean, risking is not an easy task. So we have to think inwards how government will create avenue inwards in a sub-regional or regional level. The financial institutions we have, how they come and support hydrogen development, let's say African development, like AFC, the ECOWAS development. I think we need African solutions, we need African financial solutions to achieve that. I as government, these are the policies we want to drive to ensure that our own financial institutions are there to provide the necessary finances to achieve it. Because, yes, the West will say also development banks will also support, but the conditions are very difficult as soon as possible. And mostly, our projects are seen not to be marketable. Not to be marketable in the sense that, I mean, we kind of measure with the standards that are at the global stage. We have our local peculiarities. So I think our own financial institutions really be in a position to understand our context and get us financial solutions. And this can be driven by policies from our various governments that are part of these financial institutions to move us forward with the
Yeah, thank you very much for that. And that's smoothly leads us into that financial institution, which is here with us. So, my brother Eluma from AFC, you've heard what he talked about, the policies, things that government is doing to incentivize or attract investment. And yeah, I know African Finance Corporation, they have investment into energy, infrastructure, and the rest. And I know at the same time, investors, like African AFC and other investors, they are out there to make money. They are out there looking for returns. I mean, they are not charity organizations. So for an industry like the hydrogen space, which is very much new, like we've said already, coming to invest in hydrogen from that investor's perspective, what are the things you'll be looking at? What are the things you want to see that really say to you, yes, this is a good place to go, or this is something to really have a go at? You've heard what he said about what government is doing, tax break and some incentive and things like that. Are those enough, or are there some specific things an investor will be looking at? Especially given, again, our jurisdiction in Africa, because it's not just the technology risk, other regional risk and everything associated. What are the things we'll be looking at to invest in hydrogen project?
Thank you very much. I think, first of all, again, thank you all for the opportunity to invite us to make our modest contribution to this discussion, and also to stand on existing protocols. So just a couple of reiterations of points that have been made earlier. Number one, Africa contributes less than about 2% of the total global emissions, right? So we're small players in the problem, although we are definitely recipients of the effect of it. That's the first thing to keep in mind. Second, and I think the last gentleman actually mentioned it, the transition, the narrative on the transition, and even the objective set for the transition, in my mind, are not African agendas. We need to drive that discussion ourselves. We need to figure out what the priorities are and the order to achieve those priorities. Immediate priority A, we've got a large population that is growing. We probably need to slow down the growth of that population and make sure that kids, we need to think about how many engineers are we producing, how many physicists are we producing, etc., right, to help us address the issues that are immediately in front of us, right? But so I'm saying two things. Number one is that we need to frame the problem in a way that takes into account our challenges and the need for us to develop. And the need for us to develop means that we're going to need base load power going forward. We actually have to go up in order for us to come down. We're not going to come down directly. That's the first point. The second, to answer your question very directly in terms of broad policies, is one of the things that you see in Africa is that between Ghana and Ivory Coast, just to pick an example, you produce more than 50% of all the cocoa that is produced in the world. However, all of that stuff is shipped in raw form overseas, processed, and then distributed around the world. Countries like Guinea and a number of other African countries are major producers of bauxite that is then used to process things like iron. This is also exported, right? The marine pollution associated with exporting raw materials and all of this stuff going around the world is more than 2%. That is to say, just the marine pollution is bigger than Africa's contribution. So what am I saying? What I'm saying is that one of the things that we need to focus on the continent is localization of industries. To what extent can we add value to cocoa in Africa before it's exported? To what extent can you further refine things like bauxite into iron or things like this before it's exported? If you do that, you're doing a lot of things. You're creating jobs. You're also reducing the environmental footprint associated with all of these. It's something that we call localization, and we're on the path to transition. Now, of course, we do have to use advanced resources. That's number one. Number two is that, investors in the end are looking for the same things. Whether they're invested in the hospitality industry, they're invested in energy, or they're invested in anything else. You have to provide the enabling environment for people to invest their long-term money going forward. You have to have some of the relevant infrastructure that will promote that investment. So beyond the tax bits that have been mentioned, you've got to create the appropriate enabling environment, you've got to create the appropriate regulatory environment, you have to create the appropriate legal climate, such that if I come in and invest, I don't get into expropriation, either partial or total, that will frustrate my investment, especially given that these are the goals. The last point I want to make, and I think, or rather, the second to the last point I want to make, and I think this is important in this context, is that speaking specifically about hydrogen, it's technology that is still evolving. So I'm not saying that it's technology also that should be encouraged by what we sometimes call more patient capital. There is a type of capital that can encourage that. But it's not every type of capital that encourages that, because a lot of capital would like for that technology to be more established. A lot of capital also knows that technology, if you look at the cost trajectory, is going down. And therefore, they would like for it to get to a point where it becomes, as it goes down, more capital will come to it. The last point that I want to make, and this is what we've actually done, because it's easy to come to these conferences and talk about all sorts of aspirational stuff, and I'm not saying we should be aspirational, but sometimes it's also good to just actually do something. So we have invested in ourselves. We've invested in hydro assets in various countries on the continent. We've invested in wind assets, and in fact are doing even more as I speak to you now. We also have investment in solar assets, and as has been mentioned by previous speakers, Africa fortunately is very well blessed with especially things like solar in certain geographies, with wind, and we need to sort of exploit and can exploit some of this, put them into the energy mix, and make sure that we complement, build our base load, and as much as possible take advantage of the technology. The last thing I want to say, and I know that I've almost exhausted my time, I want us to think about this very, very carefully. There is a generic term of Africa, the African emissions, etc. If you actually go through and you look at African countries and look at emissions, I took a very quick look just as I was coming here. South Africa, in the last data that was collected, is responsible for about 500 million tons of CO2 emissions. Nigeria was responsible for about 123 million tons of CO2 emissions. By the time you get down to places like Senegal, it's 10 million tons. So there is also, one also has to think about just the weight of some of these things and the role that some of our friends and colleagues need to play in order to have any impact. You cannot expect Senegal to have the same impact as the South Africa.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much for those points. And I think those points actually raise other points of discussion as well. I mean, from yesterday to today, a lot of people have been talking about Africa leading their own conversation. That's completely how it should be. We know where we are, we know our environment, we know what we need. But again, the reality is we can't live in isolation. The reality is this is a trend, this is a global market space. We can't live in isolation. We have to, one way or the other, do those things within our environment that is good for us, suitable for us, but at the same time, some way align ourselves with what is happening around us. And that's, if you listen to the secretary this morning, secretary from Apple, he mentioned 3 things. We know what our problems are. He mentioned finance, market, technology, and expertise. And you mentioned as well some of those things. So my question to you as a follow-up now will be, do you think Africa is in that space where we can actually consume, if you like, what we generate, assuming we are not really thinking about a global trend, we are thinking about ourselves. We want to be. Do you think we have that market within Africa that is self-sustaining? That market that can, consumption that can drive investment in upstream, for example? Do you think we are at that point at this time?
Okay, I have to be careful when I answer this question because I'm in a government city. In economics, there is a difference between what is called effective demand and just demand. So to answer your question, I have to I'll first of all say that what Africa can consume really is a function of what Africa can pay for and what Africa is willing to pay for, and what Africa is willing to trade off in paying for A rather than B. So what am I saying? Essentially, right now, today in Nigeria, one of the big problems that you see is that the NDET, the electricity distribution aggregator, or rather the electricity aggregator that then provides power to everybody else, is, to put it very honestly, technically insolvent. So there's a lot of demand which is not being paid for. But if NDET were able to actually pay its bills, if NDET were able to sign contracts with renewable energy companies, etc., those companies will come into existence. More of those things will happen. So I'm answering your question in an upside down way. There is a lot of demand, clearly. There is not a corresponding willingness to pay for what is demanded. There is also not a corresponding willingness to reflect the tariffs associated with the cost of bringing that capacity to the markets. Hopefully you heard in my voice the frustration of somebody who has to finance this. That's the challenge of Africa. If you solve 10% of that challenge, you solve a big problem.
Thank you very much for that. Thank you so very much for that. So, yes, I agree with you. We have the market, but the willingness to pay or ability to pay, purchasing power, which again Secretary mentioned earlier. And again, the infrastructure to actually get it to those places where they are needed, within the African market. And again, before we finally round up this session, I want to quickly go to Philibert again. You are already in this space from the perspective of African Hydrogen Partnership or some things you're doing in Ivoire Hydrogene. So I want to ask you, hydrogen, we're talking about it currently, one of the challenges is high cost of production per kilogram. And again, we know also there is this constraint in demand. So globally, things are still being done to stimulate the demand side of things, because it's when those industries begin to demand for hydrogen, that is when business cases around production begin to make more sense. So as somebody in there, what are the things you think or that are already happening or that needs to be done to bring down the cost of production down, and again, to stimulate demand overall to make business case attractive?
In fact, for stimulate demand, you need an offer. And at this time, hydrogen is expensive. But you have different kinds of hydrogen. Green hydrogen from Panellists, and you have an opportunity is a natural hydrogen from the field. So at this time, there are a lot of studies to see how to use this hydrogen. So in my mind, the best way to develop this technology is to give an answer for local markets. Like you know, in Africa, there are a lot of opportunity in agriculture for development. And agriculture needs a lot of fertilizer. For example, Ivory Coast is the first exporter of cacao, but 20% of their importation is fertilizer. So there is an opportunity to create a market and have a good price of hydrogen. If you produce local hydrogen for produce ammoniac and transform it in fertilizer, you can have a good balance for launch the technology. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So this is the point of view we share with the people of African Hydrogen Partnership, and we want to work on it for local market before. Because we hear many things in Europe, they're going to export hydrogen. No, it's not the good way. Firstly, people must know what is hydrogen, how we use it, and the policy from the country must be developed for good understanding and for good development. Not the development for Europe, but for Africa. So this is my answer.
Yeah, thank you very much. And yeah, round of applause for my panelists, please. I think we've done justice to it. I mean, 1 hour or 1 hour 30 minutes or so, probably not enough to discuss this. But as time goes on, as we keep engaging at government level, market level, global level, I think we should have in mind that Africa, we have that potential. Even if we want to say going green, green hydrogen or blue hydrogen, we have that potential to lead production and supply of this kind of clean energy. And that's what we have in mind. So as much as we continue to use our fossil fuel, and obviously actually natural gas is can very much synergize with blue hydrogen. So we shouldn't really see it as this fossil fuel versus this, but let us see it as a kind of opportunity to diversify and prepare ourselves for the future, even as we're doing what we're doing and moving forward. Thank you very much, and once again, a round of applause for my panelists. Thank you.